And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about the Golden State Warriors and their interest in Lauri Markkanen because, that's sort of been a very common, well, not really a common, that's sort of been a very popular trade target for the Golden State Warriors. Actually, you know what? I'm going to adjust the title a little bit because, Lauri Markkanen is kind of boring. Golden State Warriors interested in Lauri Markkanen. That's really they've been interested in them since the start of free agency. And in fact, they're so interested in them that they won't even let Andrew Wiggins play for Team Canada because they want to use him for trades. Which I already have a podcast and I already have a segment where I explain my complete dislike for that move and just my disdain for the Warriors for doing that. But that's part of what makes them such a good organization and such a good front office. Arguably, top 5 front office of all time. I mean, they've created several championship teams in the span of a few years, and I mean, maybe their championship window has closed now, but, whenever you have a prime Steph Curry, you always have the opportunity to compete. At least that's my opinion. Now, we can actually go ahead and go into this next segment, which is about Lauri Markkanen and the Golden State Warriors and their interest in Lauri Markkanen. Now, the trade that they offered, I'm just pulling up the details of this trade. It was very, very, very expensive. Very extremely expensive, even for Golden State standards. They don't really seem as, they do seem as the type of team to try and get better, but I don't really think they seem the type of team that is willing to just get rid of every single asset that they have. So this trade that the Utah Jazz have reportedly offered for Lauri Markkanen contains a lot of pieces. The Jazz, they asked the Warriors for Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks in exchange for Lauri Markkanen. Now, I have no idea what on earth the front office is thinking. I have no idea, how much do they think that Lauri Markkanen is worth? I'm honestly stunned at this, trade proposal that the Jazz, this is according to Shams, do they think this man is Kevin Durant? Do they think this guy is LeBron James? They're practically asking the Golden State Warriors to give up everything that they have in exchange for one player. That is absurd. That is a ridiculous trade. And considering how the Atlanta Hawks, how they gave up DeJounte Murray in exchange for 2 players and a couple of picks, and 2 of those players not even being that good or one of the top 2 options for the team, this is ridiculous value. Because, remember, the DeJounte Murray trade, it was consisted of Larry Nance, somebody else that I don't really remember, and 2 first-round picks. Now, I initially said that I was very surprised that the Pelicans were able to negotiate a deal where they didn't even have to give up Brandon Ingram. So, the fact that they didn't even have to give up their second-best player for somebody like DeJounte Murray, who arguably has the same amount of production as Lauri Markkanen, doesn't make any sense to me. It genuinely doesn't make any sense. Because it's who do you think Lauri Markkanen is? He's a great player, don't get me wrong. Lauri is a great player and brings tremendous value, but he's not worth 3 players and multiple first-round picks. What is this, a Paul George deal? No. And even then, Paul George, the Paul George trade, from between OKC and the Clippers, for the Clippers, that was arguably the worst trade in the history of their organization and in the history of basketball, period. Ooh, and I completely forgot to mention that, R.I.P. Joe Bryant. I just totally forgot to mention that, but he's the father of Kobe Bryant, and he ended up passing away, and I found out the news, earlier today. I was going to mention that in the first segment, but I went on a little tangent, and I completely forgot. So, I apologize for that. He's resting with, Kobe and his granddaughter, so yeah. just wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention. I'm not really going to do a segment on that unless you guys want me to. But aside from that, that was just, the other news that's been going on in the basketball world. Now, back to Golden State and Lauri Markkanen. Now, according to this article, they appear to be trying to make a serious run at a trade, but right now there doesn't appear to be any traction. The Warriors have been the most engaged team for Markkanen in recent weeks. As league sources tell The Athletic, they have discussed a proposal around Moses Moody, multiple first-round picks, multiple pick swaps, and multiple second-round picks, according to this article. But, as I alluded to before, the Jazz, they want more players, and the recent trade that I mentioned before is what the Jazz are more interested in. Golden State seems to be somewhere between wanting to compete for a championship and just taking the next step towards an all-out rebuild. And it doesn't seem as if the Warriors can decide. Now, personally, if you have a prime Steph Curry, you want to try to do your best to win a championship whenever you can, because you want to take advantage of the fact that Steph Curry can still run around screens, can still shoot, can still pass the ball, can still play make, and can still do all of these things. You want that. You need that to win. But it just makes it all the more difficult when you don't have Klay Thompson anymore. And really, one of the most overlooked things about the Golden State Warriors is that Steph Curry hasn't won a playoff game without Klay Thompson. Which, again, begs the question, do you want to try and compete for a championship, or do you try to rebuild? And personally, I would try to compete. Like, you have Steph, you have Draymond, I would try to compete. But again, assuming that Draymond takes on a much bigger role for the team, I don't really know if they have enough tools and enough pieces in order to compete if they are going to make this trade. Markkanen would mean that they are still focused on trying to get to another level. Still, the dynasty days are over now, according to this article, and there really is no salvaging them anytime soon. Markkanen would move the needle, but probably not enough to start talking about title success, which I agree with. I mean, like I said, Markkanen is good, but not that good. And Steph Curry, again, hasn't won a playoff game without Klay Thompson. After failing to pull off a trade for Paul George, and after losing Klay Thompson in free agency, the Warriors have remained steadfast in their pursuit of championship-level talent around Curry and Draymond Green. All options are on the table for Golden State, yet it is unknown if they have offered their best young talent, Jonathan Kuminga, for Markkanen, despite holding him out of a trade conversation for George. Now, that said, one league source told HoopsWire that he would be surprised if the Jazz would actually move on from Markkanen, as he's become the type of player around whom you'd build. So again, on Utah Jazz's side, they seem to really want to build the team around Lauri Markkanen, which is something that I could see somewhat working, but at the same time, no. Again, Lauri Markkanen doesn't really move the needle on championship caliber team as one would think. But again, I could be totally wrong. So that's basically all that I have for you guys on this third segment, and Golden State being interested in Lauri Markkanen and things of that nature. So then we'll go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where I talk a little bit about some basketball news, ranging from the summer league, ranging from Cameron Payne signing with the Knicks, things like that. And I'll talk about it right after this short break, so be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.